Hi there, my name is Ricky Casford with At Your Service Plumbing, and today we're going to rebuild a toilet. All right, so the tools we're going to use to rebuild this toilet is a flathead screwdriver, a small crescent wrench. Now I happen to have a neat socket where the bolt can go all the way through the socket. If you happen to have one of those, that's very handy. Some channel locks. It's always good to have a rag when you're working with wet or dirty substances. I have a basin to catch any excess water as I open up the tank, but I'm going to try with my wet dry vac to get as much of the water out. Alright, so the first step anytime you're working with a fixture is to turn the water off. And what I have here is a mock-up of the water supply coming to a water stop. This particular model is called a quarter turn stop, simply because you turn it a quarter and you stop the water. In your house you may have a gate stop, and that has a little bit more turning action to it. I prefer the quarter turn just because there's less moving parts. Alright, so once the water is off, we're going to want to flush the toilet once to get all of the excess water that's in the tank to drain out. You'll have probably about an inch or less of water in there once you've done that, and then what you can do is remove the top and use your shop vac, your wet dry vac, to suck out all the excess water. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to disconnect the supply line, which is bringing the water into the tank. So here I'm going to unscrew this and have my basin ready to catch any extra
Alright, so
water.
once the water supply line is taken off, we're going to take off the nut that holds the fill valve in. So we'll use our channel locks.
Grab a hold of this nut, start taking off. Once this is removed, we can take the fill valve out. Alright, so these are the pieces that would come in your fill valve kit. The valve itself, you have that little tube that fills into the fill tube, and then you have a few pieces that look like this that kind of all come together. These are gaskets. This here is the nut that secures the fill valve that was on the bottom of the tank we took off earlier. And then this piece is only used if you install a flared water line on your own. But we're going to use one that we purchased at the hardware store that already has one of those on it, so I'll set that aside. This remaining piece is going to go on the fill tube. All right, so here's a top view of removing the fill valve. We're just going to pull this up here, and this little hose just pops right out of there, and it's out. Now this is a float valve, the kind of an antiquated version. I do have a more modern version called a fill valve. It functions very much in the same way. This little piece here floats, and as it floats up, it tells the valve to shut the water off at the appropriate level. If you need to adjust the level of your water in your tank, there are two ways to do that. On here, very small, is a plus and a minus sign. And if you turn it appropriately, it reduces or raises the amount of water that is in your tank. Also, if that's not quite enough, there is a little collar here. Lifts up, and then you just adjust this accordingly, higher or lower, depending on your level of water. Alright, so the first step in installing the new fill valve is to apply the gasket. Now there are actually two gaskets here that will come with your kit. The center one that you can pull out, and it does take a little bit to pull out, and that's going to be okay. We're going to discard because that's if we used that flared water valve. And I'm going to put the gasket on like this. We want the outer edge to be facing down, that little extra space. I'm going to put it all the way up to here. And then this end is going to go right back in that hole that we just took the other valve out of here. And what we want to make sure we do is we have plenty of space for this to operate. If it's over against the wall, it's not going to operate very well because of the friction. And also keep in mind, as you put the nut on underneath, this may spin a little bit. So you want to make sure that it stays in a free area. All right, so the last few things we have to attach, we're going to connect the fill valve to the fill tube. I'm going to use this little supply tube. I'm going to connect that to the fill valve. And then this little device that came with your gaskets and your nut, I'm going to attach this into this groove on the fill tube. Now as you can see, this is a little bit long, and it comes long on purpose. So what you can do is cut it down to have a little bit of a curve and then attach it to your fill tube.
Put the nut back on. The water supply line back on. And turn the water on.